Hi, my name is Linda Sifumba and welcome to Conversations with my big sister. Today we're joined by Janice.
Yes.
She's a sexual expert, so we're going to be talking about sex. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for having to be willing to have this conversation with us, and especially amongst, I guess, young people. It's very difficult for us to really speak about this topic and speak about it in the right way. Yeah. I think we speak about it, like you said earlier on when we were having a conversation, yeah. We speak about it based on what society says. Yes. It is, so thank you for coming to, I guess, set things straight in terms of sex. Yeah. So tell us about yourself. Who are you? Where do you come from?
I am from Benoni.
Okay.
I'm a musician as well.
Oh, great. Do you sing?
I do.
That is so cool.
I do. But usually, though, when talking about the music, the conversation always leads to sexuality.
How come?
I don't understand how it happens, and then radio interviews always end up. We always end up talking about sexuality and God. I don't know how it happens, but it happens that way.
Yeah.
I'm from Benoni. I am my parents' firstborn. I've got two younger sisters as well, musicians. Yeah, that's about me.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what is it then that attracted you to the topic of sex? What is it that made you feel like this is such an important thing in my life that I feel like I'd like to personally explore?
Okay. I was a Christian about 12 years old. That's when, I started taking my relationship with God very seriously.
Okay.
Around 12 years old.
Wow, at 12 you were able to discern it's time for me to take my relationship with God?
What happened was I was invited to church.
Okay.
By a couple of friends of mine, and the preaching really hit home, you know?
Shucks.
So you're thinking to yourself, hey, I better take this very seriously, you know? So that's when I made the decision to give my life to the Lord and really follow the Lord. But, after, I'd say late teens, early 20s, you start having, your body starts to develop and you start having certain feelings.
Yes.
And now when you're raised in the church, you're always told, no sex before marriage. If you have sex before marriage, that's the worst thing you could possibly, commit.
Yeah.
And all that's left for you is hell. And that's it. So I started to discover that I was having certain feelings. I was attracted to boys, cute boys. You get into trouble doing things you shouldn't be doing. But there was a conflict with what I was told and what was happening in my body. And so I did things that probably people in the church would forbid.
Yes.
I compromised my sexuality.
Yes.
And
how do you mean by compromising your sexuality?
I had sex before marriage.
Okay.
And probably started fiddling around with boys when I shouldn't have been. But, there was nobody having honest conversation with young people and how we need to deal with these feelings that we're having while we're not married. In the waiting period, how do you? I mean, it's not enough to just say, don't have sex.
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do with these feelings that I'm having? So while doing, while having boyfriends and fornicating, because that's what we call it, there was just a conflict with my soul, my spirit, and what I was doing. And, the world tells us that, if you've got the feelings, you've got protection, go for it. You need to release your sexual tension.
Just to be clear about the compromise, and especially for people that are not Christian.
Yes.
I guess then the compromise would be your inner self is not agreeing with the physical thing that you're doing.
There we go.
When you do the physical thing, the inside of you is not okay with the action that you took. Okay, that would be the compromise.
That would be the compromise.
And having the sex before marriage.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I like to describe it like this. Oftentimes we complain that, we wish we wouldn't feel pain.
Yeah.
Yet pain is the thing that signals if something is wrong with the body.
Yes.
So if we don't have pain, if I put my hand on top of the stove, if I don't have pain, then I won't know that I'm burning myself.
Yes.
I like to think that your conscience is the same thing. It's an indicator of something that we believe is morally wrong. It's something that is innate with us and it's innate in us. And I like to believe that God has put it in there so that it's an indicator when we are coming against our
inner belief
There we go. So it's a warning. It's
With
a
our
gauge.
identity and our real authentic self.
Yes. Because I like to believe that, you know, we're not just physical. We have a soul, and we are spirit first and foremost. I'm a Christian, so I believe, you know, the Bible says in the beginning, you know, God, he made us in his image. And, you know, the word says that God is spirit. So when he said, let's make man, I believe man is the spirit. It's the spirit. It's who we are when we reflect God.
It's the breath that he gave us.
There we go. So man is a species, is a spirit, and then he later put Adam in a body in order to be able to function in this earthly realm. So you're first and foremost a spirit before you're a physical being. And then you possess a soul, which is your will and your emotions. So that's what I believe. So, you know, what I was doing in the physical was really against what I felt my spirit was saying is right.
You were constantly in conflict internally,
And I sought help to people who I thought from people who I thought were expert. And at the time, they were pastors. And I said to them, this is what's been happening in my life. I'm making these decisions because I cannot wish these feelings away. They're innate in me, and I believe they're there for a reason. But nobody's really being specific on how to deal with these emotions while we wait for marriage.
That is so
since the Word of God says so. So how do we handle? I need practical steps. Just telling me not to do this is just not enough. And nobody could give me the right answers except to say, you just need to control yourself. And you just...
I can relate.
And it's like I've tried to control myself, and when you see a cute boy and he's saying the right stuff, you know, so I decided, you know what, I'm gonna, for my sake, and to have peace of mind, and my relationship with God is so important, and I need to get that correct because it's not giving me peace. I'm restless when it comes to this. I'm gonna go out there and do my own research and find out how I can get practical tools to deal with this. And that's how it basically started.
Sure, that is very, very powerful, because I know for a lot of us, especially that come, you know, with the fact that we come from Christianity, you know, the idea of sex alone and having to say sex is like alarming. And it's like a no-go zone. It feels as though it's a no-go zone, even if it's an unsaid thing, but it still feels like it's a no-go zone. So the fact that you're able to, you know, delve deep into actually facilitating, you know, and orchestrating a conversation about that, it's such an important thing, I think, in society, for even young people to know how to handle those emotions and feelings. We don't know how to handle them when they come. They come and they overwhelm us, and we're like, okay, how do we exit? We just need to, you know, and we need to have these conversations to know how to handle them. And so, did you ever have a conversation with someone that is also a sex expert to be able to get to this place, or did you just then navigate your way through it in terms of, like you said, researching? Is that how you then became the sex expert that you are today?
I navigated my way through it.
Because,
like I said, the people who surrounded me were not willing to be transparent. And I think sometimes that's the sad thing about those we seek counsel from. They're not willing to be very vulnerable and very open about the mistakes they've made. And I can understand sometimes when you're a pastor or you're a counselor at the church, you don't want people to see you a certain way because certain mistakes or sins, they come with shame. But I think there's so much power in being transparent because you might find out that you bring somebody else a sense of freedom and a sense of peace just to make them feel like you're not alone. So for me, I invested the money I had on resources because I was not okay with feeling the way I was feeling. And based on just willing to be vulnerable, just taking that brave step to be vulnerable with friends around me, it made me realize I'm not the only one who's having this issue. And people feel like they cannot talk about it. There's a sense of shame that comes with sexuality. And it didn't make me feel okay. I was restless in my spirit that we're not talking about this, and yet this God who's designed us and made us made sex. And surely the church, which obviously if you're a Christian you go to, should be the mouthpiece. If we love this God so much and we believe in him and we believe that he designed us with a purpose and he designed us spirit, soul, and body. He put these things in us. Surely we need to be the platform that says sex is this, and there's no shame in it. And we need to have the solutions on how we can handle all these emotions that we're getting, and nobody was talking about it, and I had an issue with it, and I was like, God, if you have to use me, use me, I'll do it. It's not easy talking about these kind of things, but you know what? I find that God tends to take the things we're very ashamed of to bring somebody else freedom.
All the time.
If you're brave enough to do it. And I believe the shame we put on ourselves and the hiding is not worth it, because you're never alone. The very thing you're afraid of somebody knowing is something that they're afraid of you knowing. And if you would just take that risk and say, this is who I am, masks off. I mean, if God accepts me, who cares what anybody else says? I mean, if he is pure and perfect and he says, I approve of you, I love you, I don't care what you've done, I love you and I approve of you and I've called you, who cares what the next person says?
That's very powerful. When we come back, I'd like for us to really talk about why it's so important for young people to have a sexual education. So thank you so much for your time. See you guys later. See you in a couple of minutes. Welcome back to Conversations. We're chilling with Janice and we're talking about sex. So Janice, I wanted to speak about, why is it important for young people, both men and women, to know about sex even before marriage, just to have a conversation about sex? Why is that so important for society?
Because it's such a big part of us. I think it's important to understand. I think when we talk about sexuality, we always equate it to being sexually active. You are a sexual being when you're born, and you being a sexual being means that you have a spirit, you have a soul, and you have a physical. So it's a part of you, and that's why it's important for us to talk about sex, because any violation to your sexuality or making mishaps or mistakes in it sort of it plays a big role in how you lead your life, and it plays a lot with your subconscious, your mind, your thinking, what the choices you make, your identity, how you look at yourself. I've met people who have been molested. It has played a big role in their mind. So our sexuality is a core of who we are. So I think it's good if we get that straightened out from the beginning. I think it's important for parents to have a good conversation with their children while they're at the age of understanding about their sexuality, about sex. As soon as they can understand, explain what sex is to them as much as you can. How they can grasp it. Obviously, I mean, going to details with a 4-year-old is not going to, it's counterproductive. But as soon as they can understand and they're asking questions, be candid. I think we need to stop, saying, this is a bird, especially with their sexual organs as well. It's not a bird, it's a penis. It's not a bee, it's a vagina. We need to be straightforward with our children so that they can get comfortable, and because it's a part of them, there's no shame.
And just talking, so basically it's addressing the feelings of sex. So it's addressing, because I think people can get it mistaken with, having to be a sexual expert, that you're talking about pleasure, being pleasured. Does that play a role, or is it specifically about the right way of doing sex, and when it would be for you to be when will it be the right time for you to have sex, or what is it like? What would the conversation you'd have with young people before sex? What is that conversation like? Because I know that with older people that are married, when they go to sexual experts, they're going to go speak about, how am I able to pleasure my husband more? How is my husband able to pleasure the wife more? So that's the kinds of conversations they have. So how is your conversation with, then young people?
Look, I think however we think about something, our feelings come to play. So whatever I think about food, my feelings are attached to that, because your mind is very linked to your emotions. So even the married couples, like you say, however a wife thinks about sex influences how she feels. So that's why I say, if we can get it right from the beginning, and we tell young people the feelings you have, there's nothing wrong with them. Especially in the church where we make sex such a taboo thing.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with feeling aroused.
Yes.
You need that for the time you get married.
Yes.
You need that, and that
Yes.
it's okay to feel that way. I think the problem comes to, how do I handle that in the waiting process? And that's where we make mistakes. And the mistakes that we make in that time will affect how we feel in the
Yes.
marriage. So in order for us to have successful, and this is the thing also, God wants us to have great sex lives. I mean, if he made sex to be enjoyed in the covenant of marriage, surely he wants it to be good.
Yes.
And how we think about it in those single years, it's going to influence that. So if you
Yeah.
can get that right from the beginning, we're highly likely going to have good marriages.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And also, we were talking about it. We were having a conversation
Yeah.
earlier on, and it's basically also there would be less hiding as well. Then the sex no longer has the power over you.
Thank you.
You know, which then leads me to my next question in terms of pornography.
Yes.
You know, I guess with the hiding,
Yeah.
it then, when you hide this, you know, the doing of sex and having to be a part of sex and doing it before marriage, you then, it's almost like you lend a hand to it to expose you to being addicted to certain things, you know, to stimulate yourself and and so how do we curb that? How are we able to curb, you know, not being addicted to porn? You know, is porn a bad thing, you know, for people, you know, to be watching?
I love the fact that you brought up stimulating yourself, because one of the subjects that seems like it is just so wrong to talk about is masturbation. We need to talk about it, because most people do it.
Yes.
We need to talk about it. It's a reality.
Yeah.
So as far as porn is, let's start with pornography. As far as pornography is concerned, it acts like a drug. So what it does is it acts like it releases dopamine to in your brain.
What is that?
Dopamine is like a feel good drug.
Oh,
it's like a feel good feeling.
Like
that
an
high,
endorphin.
that high you get.
Oh, okay.
The natural release of your body would release endorphins, like after you take a run, after you have a run.
Okay.
That satisfaction, that rush you feel, that will be. That's your natural body releasing endorphins. Now, what chemicals do, like your drugs, your cocaine, or whatever substance you use, what it does is it releases, it stimulates dopamine.
Okay.
But it releases it in an unnatural way.
Oh.
And then porn also has effects of heroin, which is the relaxing part. So cocaine would be, equating it with pornography would be like your high.
Okay.
So as you're watching this material, it's stimulating you, and you get that high. And then you obviously then would get an orgasm, which would cause that relaxing feeling of heroin.
Oh.
So it acts like a drug, which is not good for your brain. And what you're not noticing is it is changing the function of your brain. So what happens with drugs is that obviously to maintain the first high you got, you need to take more. Ask any drug addict. You need to take more to achieve the initial high. So that's what happens with pornography. So you would watch what people call soft porn to begin with. You will find later on you need to watch more debasing material to achieve the first high you got. So I cannot believe that it's good for anybody,
Okay.
and the shame it comes with that.
Yes, yes.
And what it does also is, as far as men are concerned, it affects how you relate with women and how you see women.
Sure.
And I think we don't talk a lot about that. I think we're always addressing women. Don't dress like this.
All the
Don't
time.
behave like this. Don't do that. But nobody's talking to the boys
Men.
about sex and how to relate to women. One friend of mine is a teacher, and they were telling me that at school, one of the boys was playing with a girl's bra, and he was pulling the strap of the bra at school. And he kept doing it, and this girl said to him, "Stop it, you shouldn't do that." And he kept pulling it and pulling it, and she said to the teacher, "Look at what this guy is doing." And his response was, "Boys will be boys." See, I don't understand why we're not teaching boys about how to behave.
Boys will take responsibility they need to take responsibility of their actions.
And I think this is why we're where
it
we're
comes
at with
education,
society.
yeah.
We're not talking to our boys about sex. We're only addressing the issue to women. And yet they're the ones who are violated, which makes me so upset. We need to talk to boys about sex and how to behave and how to relate to women. And pornography, unfortunately, doesn't help the situation.
Because we're teaching women to condone the bad behavior that boys, you know, we're giving them the spirit. We actually keep on influencing the spirit of entitlement.
There we go.
In men, we keep on encouraging it.
There we go.
And we're taught to do that.
Yes. Yes.
You're so right. It's important for us to educate men and boys.
Yes. And that's why I conduct these talks with my friend Johan Binneman, who addresses the boys and the girls. It's just not enough to talk to girls about sex. We need to talk to boys as well, because they're the ones who are perpetrating. The rape is not necessarily, not that it doesn't happen, that men are not raped, but the gender that gets the backlash of it are women. We're getting young girls violated at school.
But a very interesting thing as well is that the reason why men rape is because there was no education, is because of the spirit of entitlement. They feel entitled to touch the girl that way, to violate that girl sexually too. So you're right, the education is necessary. I think if anything, if more of this education is, you know, targeted at men, there would be less rape, there would be less, you know, sexual violation, there would be less molestation, you know. But when we come back, I'd like for us to speak in depth about that conversation. See you guys in a couple of minutes. Welcome back to Conversations. So Janice, I just wanted to speak to the topic of masturbation.
Yes.
I know we spoke about porn, and you know, you actually unpacked it very, very nicely in terms of, you know, the correlation of porn and you know, and a drug, and how that actually could contribute to the fact that porn is not very healthy for our minds. You know, is masturbation okay? Is masturbation healthy? Is it a thing that people could do while they're waiting to have sex before marriage?
That's always debatable. However, I find when I have conversations with young men and young women, and sometimes even people who are older than me, I think we need to understand that sex doesn't begin in the genitals. Sex begins in the mind. So in order for you to be aroused, that means you were thinking something, and then the brain sends messages to your sexual organs. And I just think whatever you're thinking about surely will affect your ideas about sex. So in order to be stimulated, obviously, either you're reading erotica, that's most women will read erotica and then masturbate. But the thing is, your imagination is going to places. So what are you allowing in your mind? That's my thing with masturbation. And also it has a high chance of being very habitual. Now, when you're doing something and you find that you even have a compulsion where you cannot even stop, that's a problem. And I've rarely met somebody who says they masturbate once a year. It soon becomes a habit, and a habit that you can't control. And just coming from a believing place, the word says, if something controls you, it has control of, it dominates you. And we're not supposed to be controlled by anything. That's the issue with me. So now if you're being controlled by your body, I don't see how you're living a pure life mentally.
Because there's something I read, and it says sometimes even being celibate, sometimes waiting is not necessarily your physical waiting. It has nothing to do with the fact that you're not having sex. It has everything to do with the posture of your heart.
Thank you.
What is your posture looking like? You know, in terms of you could not be having sex, but what are you really thinking of? What, when you look, because in the Bible it says when you look at a person, your neighbor, with lust, it's a sin. You know, so what is the posture of your heart? So that's basically what you're saying in terms of masturbation. It's almost like it's communicating the posture of your heart, where it's at.
And you're not going to stop just because you're married. If you think you're going to stop because you're married, you're lying to yourself. Because I've spoken to a lot of women who said, you know, you know, if God would just take the feelings away, which He's not going to do because you need them.
And He gave us the what is it? The liberty of free will.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's not going to impose his will on you. And we need to learn self-control. If you cannot control yourself in the little things, you're not going to control yourself in the big things. And the thing is, sex is a fuel, and you need to learn to tame it, because if you cannot be faithful while you're single, in your mind, in your heart, like you say, because who are you thinking about when you're masturbating?
Yeah.
You probably are thinking about somebody's husband. You're probably thinking about, I don't know, some guy which is wrong. You should be thinking about other people. And also you're allowing fantasies, which are not going to stop either way when you're married. So if you're having sex with your husband in marriage and you've already had years of building up fantasies in your mind, is it not in a way being unfaithful? Because you're allowing other people in your marriage bed. So we need to get this while we're single, so that we can have successful marriages. I remember hearing about a testimony. I remember hearing a testimony about a woman who, she was saved, and she decided, you know what, while I have these feelings, might as well just get a vibrator. And so she got a vibrator and she used it until she was married. And this is not something, and that's another thing, I think as engaged people, we need to have honest conversations about what we've done in our lives.
And all that
because
stuff.
it'll save us the trouble when we get married, when we uncover certain things. And in marriage, she was just not sexually satisfied by her husband. And it became a problem because, as I've talked to men and just listened to married men, nothing gives a man more joy knowing he can satisfy his wife. I think if they're married men listening to me right now, they will agree. Nothing makes you feel like the boss, like the man, knowing that you can pleasure your wife in bed. And that wasn't happening for him.
Sure.
And so she went to see the pastor and said, I'm just not getting satisfied in my marriage. You know, pastor / marriage counselor.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's him, I don't know if it's me. And somehow the pastor ended up asking her certain questions, a series of questions. And he, have you ever used a vibrator? And she said, yeah, I did. While I was in waiting, she said, you see, the vibrator goes on and on and on because it has batteries and it can be charged. A man is only a man. So you have taught your body. That's the thing when we're masturbating. We're teaching our body sexual responses. And we're teaching our bodies how to react. We're teaching our bodies how to respond. So by the time your husband comes around or your wife comes around, and that's also, you know, if you're masturbating as a guy, the kind of pressure you put on your genitals, it's not something your wife is automatically going to know. So she's going to be thinking, all right, you're not enjoying sex. What am I doing wrong? And because also I find that also married couples, there's a sense of shame in talking about certain things. We're not transparent about these things. So she's there thinking to herself, she's not good at sex, and she's condemning herself. Or he's thinking he's doing something wrong. These things cause tension. There's so much to sex than what we really deal with on the surface. So when we uncover these things and you find out that your fiance or the person you're intending to get married, you need to unpack these things because you've learned certain sexual behaviors, so that when we get into marriage, there are no expectations that are going to disappoint us. We need to talk about this. It's a part of life. There's no shame about it. And somewhere, somehow, we've all gotten it incorrect. Somehow. But we need to straighten these things out and become transparent. And take the stigma off it. Take the shame of it.
Okay. And I think I just wanted to then, hop on the spree of, having a conversation and educating young men about it. That really resonated with me. I think it's important because, like we said earlier on, we're encouraging the spirit of entitlement, and we're giving them the right to feel like they can violate women however way they feel, that they think that they, should be. And a lot of the time, even when they do violate, they don't see anything wrong. Like with me, I had this encounter. I was out with my friends, and this guy came and he grabbed my bum. And I turn around and I'm like, who grabbed my bum? And he's like, I did. Like, he said it confidently, and he's like, there is no bum to touch anyways, And for me, that communicated this guy firstly had the confidence to say that I did. With no remorse. There was no saying no. People had to tell him, you need to say no, for him to have a sense of remorse. to show me that also then it means there have been many other girls before me that have been condoning this behavior. But because they've been taught that, you know, boys will be boys.
Yeah.
So this, I can't begin to tell you how important it is to have these conversations about sex and about violation. And do you think that because we don't have enough of these conversations, it does contribute to the fact that men then become abusers, even women? Because men also get sexually violated, men also get touched in places where they're not. And obviously with them, it's difficult for them to have an open conversation about that. So is it important, firstly, for men to have, you know, these conversations to curb sexual abuse? Also, how can men talk about being sexually violated? How can men talk about having to be raped or molested? How and where do they talk about these subjects? Where do they go? Who can they go to? How are they able to open up these kinds of conversations?
I'm glad you brought that up, and I think the thing that breaks my heart the most, as just somebody who has a lot of male friends, the one thing that's common is that they don't have males who are older than them who are telling them how to be men. We have a crisis on our hands with men who don't know how to be men because men are absent. We have a lot of women raising boys, and there are things a woman cannot teach a boy, how to be a man. So I'd like to call out to the men out there who are in good marriages and have successful careers and are doing things that are unique in society, to adopt young men or start organizations where you talk to men about being men. There's a gap.
Yeah.
And sometimes, as much as some things are just disheartening, how do you blame a guy who doesn't know how to be a guy? And the only education he's getting, and mind you, watching porn is going to school, because you're getting educated. And what they don't tell you, the truth about pornography, is that behind the scenes, when the cameras are off, the women are not enjoying the sex. Most of the time, they are highly drugged. They are drugged to take, what do we call them? Medication, prescription drugs that numb the pain, because your body is not meant to handle dildos this huge. And to be, you know, to be had by multiple guys. It's a lie. Women don't enjoy being slapped. I have yet to meet a woman, well, if she thinks that way, I think something is wrong. But I don't think any woman enjoys being slapped, being degraded during sex. We're supposed to be making love, as people say. This is supposed to be a beautiful act. I don't understand the joy in the violence. And I think also never before have we had a group of young women between the ages of 18 now and about 25. Women who watch porn with their boyfriends. You're also getting educated. You are also believing that that's how you need to behave and that's what sex is. It's not. Most of these women are drugged. Most of these women are not enjoying what's happening. Most of these women, after the scene is shot, have to go to plastic surgery to get their vaginas restructured. They have to get their anuses sewn up. It's a lie. And the more you watch this stuff, the more you go to school and you convince yourself that women like that. That is why a guy can come to you and violate you and think there's nothing wrong, because he's been going to school. And these women are reading scripts. No woman wants to be violated and be saying, give it to me, baby, give it to me. I have yet to meet a real life woman who enjoys such things. In fact, most of the women I meet whose boyfriends or husband are watching porn, they feel degraded because of the things they're asked to do in the bedroom. Like, where's the honor? I'm your wife. I'm your girlfriend. By the way, I don't condone sex outside of marriage, but I'm just saying she doesn't feel like she's respected when she's asked to say certain things, to do certain things, to be beaten around and to be spit on. Who likes to be spit on? Never mind outside in the bedroom. Who likes to be spit on outside the bedroom? So guys are going to school, and that's the problem. We need men who will rise up and say, I'm willing to adopt maybe 3 guys every 6 months and just walk with them and retrain them. We need men to rise up. That's the problem. We have men slacking in society who are not assuming their roles. We have a huge crisis and nobody's talking about it. We're putting patches on it, but that's not the roots. We need to deal with the roots, and the roots are the thinking, the mind,
the history.
Oh gosh.
Sure. When we come back, guys, I really would love for us to delve deeper into purity, pursuing purity, and how women and men are able to pursue it.
All right.
See you guys soon. Welcome back to Conversations. We are still chilling with Janice, talking about sex, baby.
Yes.
So I just wanted to speak about, you know, the idea of pursuing purity, you know. Why is it something that, even if you're not a Christian, why is it something that is very, very important for a person to pursue? You know, for both a Christian and for also a person that is a non-believer.
I think first and foremost, there's a lack of respect that we experience for ourselves when we share our bodies with people. I don't care who you are. I've yet to meet somebody who was happy that they were promiscuous. I've never met a happy person who was promiscuous. So I think it restores a sense of self-respect, because the respect starts with you.
Yeah.
The respect, you teach people how to treat you.
Yes.
You teach people how to treat you like you said.
Yeah.
You confronted the guy who grabbed your bum and told him, hey, you know. But like you said, there are other girls who are allowing that kind of stuff. So I have to question, respect Mokae. Where's the respect? So I think it restores your sense of respect.
Yeah.
Secondly, diseases. Diseases. The strength of STIs is increasing out there.
Sure.
I mean, we have herpes that lies dormant and then it surfaces at a certain point in somebody's life. I doubt that it is when you grow up a goal for you to have an STI. Protect your body. You only have one body. And you're journeying through this life. Live the best life that you can possibly live. You don't want to die prematurely. You don't want to spend the rest of your life taking medication because of an act that lasted 5 seconds with somebody, 5 minutes with somebody at a club in the bathrooms. I don't think that's your best goal for yourself. Diseases, and thirdly, just your soul. And when I talk about your soul, we're not talking about, for those who are not believers, we're not talking about, you know, your faith. We're talking about your will, mind, and emotion. Just a sense of peace, that you don't have to worry about unnecessary things. Unnecessary things, and the shame that we carry when we do these things. I don't care who you are. You know, when you're alone and you're sitting, there are things that you think about in your mind that you're not proud of. That's why you don't talk about it. That's why when you take selfies, you're at the restaurants, you know, you're at a glamorous, it's always these glamorous things. It's never, I'm sitting in my room ashamed of what I did last night. Can we just be real? So just for those 3 things, live a life where you respect yourself and you can say, you know what? I'm going to stop doing these things for the sake of self-respect and peace, and not having to worry about diseases.
Yeah. And I guess it all comes with, you know, before actually, I think, for anyone having to make that conscious decision of, you know, stepping into the decision of, you know, doing purity and pursuing purity, it starts with the person, you know, finding their identity.
There we go.
You know, finding themselves, because sometimes, even if you're involved and you keep on doing sex, sometimes you don't even know how that makes you feel, because you don't know yourself. You don't know what it is that sits negatively. You don't know what it is that sits positively, because you don't know who you are as a person. So I think, you know, what I'm learning as well is that it's important for you to be able to know this action doesn't sit well with my spirit. You need to start to be on a journey of discovering who you are as a person. You know, like, it can be in the middle, and I think it's important for people to know that it can be in the middle of them doing the sex. Like, like it can be in the middle of the shame that they're doing. They need to just, you know, regroup and find themselves first. and in order to, so that they're able to then start the journey of
Yes,
purity.
yes.
Because even if you then say, you know what, I'm stopping everything and I'm doing the journey of purity, you're neglecting your identity and who
Yes.
you are, then you lose the purpose and the reason of why you're pursuing purity, you know, to begin with.
I agree with you.
So what you've been communicating, I think, throughout this whole conversation, what I've learned is the importance of a person to understand who they are as an individual, to know when a guy slaps me during sex, I'm not okay with that.
Yes.
To know that when I do engage in sex, before he even gives me a ring, I'm not okay with that,
Yeah.
you know. It has, I think also for Christians, it has a lot to do with, you know, increasing your relationship with God.
Yep.
But I think also it has the reason why God put that there is because of the fact that he wanted to encourage us to pursue our identity and to pursue who we are as individuals specifically. And with sex, a lot of the time, it hinders that progression of understanding who you are, because you start to take on another person's journey.
Yes.
Whether it's spiritually or you take on another person's journey, you know, in terms of their sexual preference, you just somehow just take on another person's journey. And you impose it upon yourself, neglecting your journey. So I think the reason why it was there to begin with was to encourage a journey with yourself and to understand who you are as a person. I think that's what I've learned.
I like that you brought that up. And on that note, I've had conversations with guys, and I'd like to encourage more men to have female friends, so you can know how women like to be treated, and you can know the difference between us, because most of the time guys have the wrong information about men. Most of the time I find that when we're sitting with guy friends and we're having honest and open conversation, they're shocked when I dispel some of the lies that no, we're not like that. You know, the wrong person who's going to tell you that is another guy. It's important to just have good platonic, you know, relationships with your sisters, so you can learn a lot from them. I think most of the time society is telling women how to go and get a guy. How about we tell men how to relate to women and how to get a woman and what pleases a woman? But I love the fact that you touched on identity, because going back to the point, they would tell me that no, girls like this and girls like it, and I say no, they don't. Every woman is different. Just because you kiss Chantal with a lot of tongue doesn't mean Janice enjoys a lot of tongue.
Exactly.
I actually prefer moderate tongue, a lot of lip action. So it's these lies that, you know, that are just spread amongst guys, that, you know, they hype each other up. Yeah, no, you know, girls like this and girls, no, we don't. We're not the same. And that comes back to part of identity. And when we're restored sexually, sex is about discovering one another. I don't come in there with preconceived ideas that I'm going to do this and do that. You're going to be hurt and disappointed as a man when your wife says,
nah,
that was not good whatsoever, and then your ego goes, and we don't want that.
And I think also, I'm sorry to
No,
disturb
it's okay.
you. I think just on the topic of what you're talking about, it's important for women to have the strength to say that. Like, I think a lot of women just lay there and accept it because they think that's the right. We are taught, you know, and especially coming from, you know, African cultures, we are taught to just be submissive, you know, in that way, and be accepting of whatever the man throws at us. You know, I think it's important for women, like in terms of identity, to discover themselves and know what sits well and what doesn't, and say that doesn't and that does, because there is a lot of women that keep quiet and say, because the man comes with that confidence, because there were 5 women that said yes, yep, yep, but even when it didn't, you know,
some lied.
Yes.
Trust me, a
lot of them lied.
Of course they
lie.
Were
afraid to
of course,
say.
And we, like I said, you know, we're taught as women that we need to get a man, and you need to do anything you can to keep a man, to the point where you fall short for what you want. And let me tell you, this is why I said at the beginning, especially for believers, that's why I started with saying, you know, the beginning says, God created man in his image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female. When we say he created men, we're talking about the species. Then he created them male and female. We are equal. You have an equal right to enjoy sex. Just as much as your husband. Sex is about give and take. Marriage is about give and take. If we're both satisfying each other, no one is ever lacking. No one needs to look outside. If we're telling each other the truth and we're being transparent, no one ever needs to lack. And that's the beauty about it. No, don't let anybody tell you that you don't have a voice, you must just take it, da 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 da. No, you have an equal right. According to the Lord, you are the same.
That is so powerful.
He just put us in different bodies because we have different roles and we can do different things. Like, for example, men lead with prestige, women lead with influence.
Sure.
You think President Bill Clinton ruled America? No. Somebody was influencing him, and I bet you it's his wife.
Yes. Sure.
It's the wife who influences, it's the wife who gives advice. It's the man who comes home and says, this is happening out there. It's the wife who says,
with the wisdom.
Thank you very much. You're influencing as well. So you're an equal partner. It's just that the way we do things is different. And God has a reason why he did that. Like, for instance, I say, when I'm with my guy friends, and most of the time I'm the only girl, it's funny, they reveal things that they wouldn't normally reveal when it's just them. Because as a woman, I create, just by being open and emotional and vulnerable,
a safe space.
Thank you very much. That draws men to come out. They don't do that for one another. So there's a role you play as a woman. You're an equal partner. You're an equal person. You just have different roles. And I think it's important for us to discover that.
Sure.
If you know who you are, and if you know what femininity is by your designer, which means you have to know him first so that you can know who you are, you got this.
Shoo.
You have no problem being a woman. You understand what femininity is, and you know what to bring in a guy's life. Yeah.
So Janice, how do people reach you? Because I think it's so important for people to know how to get a hold of you, to have these kinds of conversations, because we don't have anyone to speak with about this. So how do we reach you on social media? How do we email you? Is there an email address? What do we do to get a hold of you?
There is an email address. It is newwineministries to the number @gmail.com. And you can reach me anytime you make an appointment. I don't care if it's a school, it's a church, it's you just want to talk and talk things out, and you just want somebody to minister to you and encourage you. A one-on-one session, I'm willing to do that because I understand how big this situation is. And how it's so much linked to the choices we make in our identity. It's so engraved, it's so entwined with who you are.
Is.
And then you reach me there, or you can reach me on Facebook. I'm there, Janice Mokae, and you just inbox me and we can link up.
That is amazing. Thank you so much for your time and for your passion and for your heart.
And thank you for inviting me. I had a good time. Thank you so much.
I'm so glad.
Yeah.
Thank you. See you guys later. Don't forget, subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. Follow us if you're watching it on Facebook. My name on Facebook is Linda Sifumba. The page on Facebook, however, is called Conversations with My Big Sister. On Instagram, I am the letter L, so it's the _letter L. Follow, subscribe, let us know, leave us comments, let us know how you felt about this conversation so we know what other topics you'd like for us to explore. Don't forget to get in touch with Janice. If you feel like there are some insecurities regarding your sexuality as a person, I feel like she's the best person to have a conversation with about this matter. So chat soon. See you guys later on the next segment. Bye.
Qoolerbox, people.